Hello, I'm Chris Epting. This is number 0832, the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, and it comes to you right now.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Now, it's time for an eclectic mix of interviews and some of the oddest news stories you'll ever hear. It's the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Hey there, hi there, ho there! Peter Anthony Holder here with you, and yes, this is indeed another edition of the Stuff File program, number 0832. And coming up on this edition of the Stuff File program, Schejtman is a composer who collaborated on an amazing symphony with legendary composer Lalo Schifrin. It was the last project that Lalo worked on before he died. How did the two Argentinians of different generations, one living in the U.S. and the other in Argentina, get together to write a symphony that would include 100 musicians?
He was 91 when we got in touch, but he missed Argentina, and he was composing for Argentina. So Argentina was something pending and very important for him. After I became the front page of newspapers, he found about me and that I was also representing Argentina, and that's how we connected with his idea of composing a great masterwork, a symphony dedicated to our country and to the value of freedom and liberty, and we composed together Long Live Freedom. That's how it started.
Jason Kristopher is the author of the zombie series, The Dying of the Light series. What was the genesis of his writing about the zombie apocalypse?
It was inspired in some ways by, believe it or not, the Pearl Harbor, Arizona Memorial. If you look at that memorial, it's smaller in the middle and then grows toward the end. It gets taller toward the end. According to the artist, that symbolizes initial defeat but eventual victory. And I feel like that's kind of what I did with the zombie series. And that's kind of why the gag is that the first book is end, and then you have the interval, and then you have the beginning, right? And so it's not so much about the end of the world as in what we can do to get past that and the indomitable human spirit.
Science writer Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy, is back on the show to talk about many things, including the oldest comet that scientists have ever discovered. Just how old is it?
We think it's at least 4.5 billion years old. Probably more like 6 billion or 8 billion. So this could actually predate the formation of our own planet Earth. And what makes this even more interesting is, of course, the fact that it's an interstellar object. It's from outside of our solar system. It didn't originate here. It's actually traveling very, very quickly. Its trajectory, the path that it's following, is what scientific folks call it's a hyperbolic orbit.
And there's lots and lots of Stuff File news, dad joke theater, morning shower thoughts, and of course, an idiot of the day. The guest later, the person who told you this was show number 0832, was Chris Epting, a freelance writer, author, expert, and TV host who has written over 40 travel and history books, including James Dean Died Here, Roadside Baseball, and Hello, It's Me, Dispatches from a Pop Culture Junkie. Thank you very much, Chris, for doing the guest slate on this edition of the Stuff File program, a show that is listener-supported, fan-funded radio that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Well, let's get right to the stuff. Authorities in Sparks, Nevada responded to a disturbance in a local Scheels sports goods parking lot after receiving reports of a shirtless man chugging a bottle of Tabasco sauce and challenging people to fights.
Any more Tabasco?
When officers arrived, they encountered 48-year-old Michael Smith, who was still shirtless and carrying a knife in a sheath. According to the Sparks Police Department, when a security guard asked Smith to leave the area, he responded with choice words, pulled out the knife, and challenged the guard. No injuries were reported. Police arrested Smith and charged him with assault with a deadly weapon and possession of drug paraphernalia. The bottle of hot sauce was confiscated and disposed of. Well, speaking as someone who doesn't like Tabasco and liken it to hot vinegar, they can confiscate them all.
Tabasco, Tabasco, the original liquid, pepper seasoning.
Neil Hopper, a vascular surgeon in Cornwall, England, faces fraud charges after allegedly having his legs removed below the knee to claim nearly $700,000 in insurance money. Hopper, who carried out numerous amputations, claimed the injuries were due to sepsis, not self-inflicted. The Royal Cornwall Hospital NHS Trust stated that the charges do not involve his professional conduct or pose a risk to patients. But Hopper is accused of encouraging others to remove body parts, with evidence suggesting his involvement with a website promoting such actions. Prior to his arrest, Hopper expressed a newfound perspective on life after the amputations in 2019. Well, clearly, this is a doctor who wasn't exactly putting his best foot forward. And still with amputations, 3 years ago, Mary Brown, now 40, was a hospice nurse in Spring Valley, Wisconsin, at the Health and Rehab Center there. One of her patients had severe frostbite and a necrotic foot, which Brown allegedly amputated without a doctor's order or the patient's permission.
Was that your feet?
Well, foot. One witness said the patient told her that he felt everything during the procedure and it hurt badly. Brown also told another nurse she planned to preserve the foot and display it with a sign that read, "Wear your boots, kids."
Here comes the double foot.
She was arrested, charged with 2 felonies, and faced up to 92 years in prison. But she got a deal, though, and pleaded no contest to misdemeanor negligent abuse of a patient. Her sentence? A mere $443 fine. Oh, and she has to pay nearly $7,000 in attorney's fees and face discipline from a board of nursing. Wear your boots, kids. It's getting deep. You know, I'm going out on a limb, and I still have all 4 of mine, but I think I'm pretty certain that that guy is going to sue somebody and probably win big. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our first guest here on this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
Greetings, passengers, to another Stuff File program installment of Idiots in Flight. This is the pre-boarding announcement. We are now inviting those passengers who are complete half-wits to begin boarding at this time. Thank you.
9 American teenagers, aged 17 and 18, were arrested at Heathrow Airport after using fake IDs to purchase alcohol in the U.S. and getting drunk on a Virgin flight to the U.K. The unruly group of students on a school trip became intoxicated during the flight, prompting the captain to alert authorities. Upon landing, 8 boys and 1 girl were taken into custody. Virgin Airlines arranged for the teenagers to return to the U.S. on separate flights as a consequence of their behavior. Oh, that's a nice touch. The Metropolitan Police Department decided not to press charges, considering the ordeal and the teenagers' return home as sufficient punishment. Wow, drunk teenagers on a Virgin flight. They must have been giggling all the way across the Atlantic. Not just because they were drunk, but because they were on a Virgin flight. Also, for the record, I've never been drunk in my entire life, but for argument's sake, if I were in this situation and the choice was between jail and my parents, I'd pick jail.
Attention to the teenage drunken fools, now arriving back home in a blurry haze. Your parents are waiting in the arrival lounge, and they looked pissed. Heaven help you all, and thank you for being Stuff File program idiots in flight.
And let's get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? A few weeks ago, we played a 1996 interview remembering legendary composer Lalo Schifrin. At the time, I mentioned that he was scheduled to do an interview with us before his death because he was working on a large-scale symphonic composition entitled Long Live Freedom. It's a 40-minute symphony for 100 musicians, which he co-authored side by side with composer Rod Schejtman, a maestro in his own right. Well, Rod is here to talk to us about that project, and he joins us via Zoom from Buenos Aires, Argentina. Hello, Rod.
Hi, Peter. It's a great pleasure to be in your show. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for honoring Lalo's memory and this very important masterwork, which is the last piece he ever composed. And we spent the last days and last years of his life working together, and it's a great pleasure to be with you today and honoring his memory.
First of all, you are an Argentinian maestro. So was Lalo. Obviously, Lalo was a lot older than you. What kind of influence did he have on your career path? And also, what was it like when you first met him?
Those are great questions. It all began with a phone call from Los Angeles. I was in Buenos Aires, but to get in touch with Lalo, it was very difficult. And I had to win the World Cup of Classical Music in Vienna before we actually met. So many years of doing the music career and finally competing against the best composers from 32 countries in Vienna, I was declared the world winner representing Argentina. And Lalo Schifrin, he left Argentina when he was about 22, and he was 91 when we got in touch. But he missed Argentina, and he was composing for Argentina, and he was creating pieces and connecting with Argentina. So Argentina was something pending and very important for him. After I became the front page of newspapers, he found about me and that I was also representing Argentina. And that's how we connected with his idea of composing a great masterwork, a symphony, 40 minutes for 100 musicians, dedicated to our country and to the value of freedom and liberty. And we composed together Long Live Freedom. That's how it started. It was on October of that year that I won the contest. And on February, at the end of February, I was talking for the first time with Lalo Schifrin. And he asked me and he said, I have a proposal for you. Let's co-offer a masterwork and let's become partners and compose a work signed by Lalo Schifrin and Rod Schejtman, combining my film music language with your classical music language. And that's how I left Buenos Aires and moved to Los Angeles for about a year.
Wow. That's impressive. Now, when he first put this idea to you, you must have been flabbergasted.
Yes, it was pretty outstanding. And actually, imagine, speaking truthfully, one thing is winning a contest, no matter how big it is, the best composers of the world. But one thing is winning a contest. And another thing is working with Lalo Schifrin. And I'm 40 years old, so our distance is almost half a century. And for me, Lalo Schifrin is much more than Mission Impossible. Lalo Schifrin was a student of one of the most important composers of the century, Oliver Messiaen, who was a student of Maurice Ravel. He was also the student of Dizzy Gillespie. So for me, working with him was working with someone that had access to knowledge from the masters, It was something incredible speaking with him. And actually, when he proposed this, I didn't know what would happen. And he told me, come to Los Angeles, we'll talk about it. So I asked him, but Lalo, can you share with me something about the composition? Do you have a melody that you already wrote? Can you please share it over the phone at least? So he did share a melody. He sang it, and I recorded it. And as soon as we hung up, I transcribed the melody. It was 8 seconds. And at the beginning, the proposal was to compose a grand work for piano solo. So I played this on the piano. And I said, wait, this melody is so great that it belongs to a section of violins. It needs the whole orchestra, not just piano. And so I brought it for a whole orchestra. And I said, if this is for Argentina and it's so big, huge, not even a normal orchestra, the biggest orchestra possible. And in Argentina, they gave us the National Symphony Orchestra, the most important of the country. And they had to hire extra musicians to cover the amount of players we needed. So I transcribed this melody and expanded it using techniques from Mozart, Beethoven, the old masters' techniques, how they developed the melodies. And when I arrived to Los Angeles, the first day, the idea of meeting Lalo Schifrin was, completely crazy. I mean, I had talk over the phone, but would he be there? Would he answer me? Would the house exist? But so many questions. Imagine traveling such a long distance to meet this Hollywood star. So it was amazing. And finally, I arrived to his house, and we go to his studio, which is at the back of his house. And when you open the door of the studio, you see the Oscar, you see 20 Grammy nominations and Emmys and letters from Clint Eastwood and the White House and photos with the most famous people you could imagine. And I'm there and I tell him, Lalo, you sang to me an 8-second melody. Here it is. Here's a recording of your voice. With this, I transcribed it and I wrote it for Grand Symphony Orchestra. And I played it. And when I played it, he went crazy. And he said, Donna, call Donna. Call my wife, Donna. Donna comes and he tells his assistant, play it again. And after that, we started working together. So that's how it all began.
So I would assume then that your various styles of the two of you meshed together very well initially.
Meshed together very well. We had a huge connection. Lalo, well, as you know, he's a great film music maker, but he's also a lover of the Romantic period and Stravinsky and many composers we both loved. And there we shared a strong connection, but it wasn't easy. Meaning, even though I was studying his pieces from Buenos Aires before traveling, but the time lapse was very short because I got the phone call and I had to travel. But when I arrived there, he gave me all of his notes that he had taken from Oliver Messiaen, and he had studied in Paris. And he gave me the books. We had pencil notes in French, and I had to study everything he studied. So we were exactly on the same page. And at the beginning, it was difficult because it was things he only knew. But it was amazing, exciting. And so the process was unbelievable because I was in Los Angeles, and I was visiting Los Angeles for a short period of time, which became almost a year. I was visiting him daily. So I was going to his house daily. Every day I was studying. Every day we were working together. And we saw all of the movies he composed. And he showed me how the music was made, even Mission Impossible. In your 1996 interview, he mentions the plot, which is the secondary theme of Mission Impossible, right?
Right.
But between us, that was not the theme of Mission Impossible. He called it the March of Oliver Messiaen because he was actually using one of the modes from Oliver Messiaen in that music. So working with him was fascinating. And I have to be honest, the first time I was there, he turned on the TV and he said, let's watch a documentary. And we were watching a documentary of himself. And I was seeing Lalo directing a whole orchestra on the TV and next to me. And the feeling was like, wow, I can't believe this is happening.
Well, unfortunately, Lalo passed away, but the 40-minute symphony for 100 musicians lives on, and you are going to be taking it in various places. First of all, what's it like first mounting that? And I saw a YouTube video from Argentina, and it was amazing. But what was it like playing that before an audience for the first time?
It was amazing. It was a lot of work and a lot of responsibility because after we composed the work together, we co-signed it, and it was done. There was much more work to be done. So I traveled to Buenos Aires. I supervised all the rehearsals on behalf of Lalo Schifrin and of myself. And I was calling Lalo every week, telling him how things were going. And it was very exciting. And working with the conductor, they assigned us the most important conductor in Argentina, who is Emmanuel Sefer. He's the guest principal conductor of the National Symphony Orchestra. And we spent 3 months of rehearsals and 3 months of explaining to him what was our idea, our vision, the emotions that he needed to transmit. And the night it finally happened, just to give you an idea of how much work we put into this. One day before we rehearsed with the 100 musicians, I was with the conductor and he was singing the whole piece from beginning to end. And I was correcting the tempo, the dynamics that he was singing, and he was conducting to an imaginary orchestra. And we did that for 2 hours before actually having the orchestra in front of us. Then we had the rehearsals, and the night of the world premiere, I have to be honest, it was played. I was on the first row. behind the conductor. I was looking at the musicians were looking at the conductor, and they were looking at me too. And the symphony ended. I went to the stage to receive the applause. 2,000 people clapping, standing ovation, and I bowed. But after I went down the stage, my face became flooded with tears. Imagine how so much work we invested. And Lalo was listening through live streaming. It was one of his most important wishes. He told me, I want this to be premiered in Argentina, in my country. And I told him, I will make it happen. I will travel. I will supervise everything. I will make this happen. And he heard it through streaming. And I called Lalo and Donna, his wife, right after the concert. And they couldn't believe it. And not just that. After the show ended, they called me from national radio. And they tell me, after we play the national anthem of the country, we will play the symphony nationwide. And it happened. And it happened again and again, 3 times in the next weeks. And even in addition to all that, the president of Argentina declared the work of cultural interest for the nation. And that happened during Lalo Schifrin's lifetime. So imagine the emotion that we lived. And I'm happy that I was able to make that true during Lalo's lifetime. And it was an incredible and very moving experience for both of us.
Amazing. We have just a few more minutes to go. I've got to mention the fact that you're taking the symphony on the road. Where can people see it and hear it? I mean, they can see it and hear it on YouTube, but where can they see it live?
Buenos Aires was the first wish of Lalo Schifrin, and he wanted to take the symphony everywhere. This is a very important work where we combined his language with mine, and we combined classical music. And for him, classical music was very important. His dad was the first violin of Teatro Colón, one of the most important theaters in America. And so he wanted to take it to Paris, where he studied, to Los Angeles, and to all the most important major cities in the world. On Schifrin Schejtman, there you will find the tour dates, and we're going to publish updates of when it's going to happen exactly in each city. And the next steps, it's a national tour in Argentina, and then we're going international to all the countries of Europe, United States, and hopefully Canada.
Excellent. Well, Rod, it's a major feat. It's also a major legacy for Lalo Schifrin. He would be so proud well, he is proud because he got a chance to hear this played before he passed away. So it's a fitting tribute to an amazing man, and kudos to you as well for an amazing collaboration. Thank you very much, Rod, for taking the time to be on the program with us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Rod Schejtman, who along with Lalo Schifrin created the large-scale symphony called Long Live Freedom, a 40-minute experience with 100 musicians. You can go to our website at thestuffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0832, and you'll find the link to both Rod's site and his and Lalo's joint site, where you can find show dates for a concert near you. You'll also find the YouTube link where you can see the Argentinian premiere of this amazing piece. It's well worth the watch. And patron subscribers, you can hear more of Rod in our post-interview conversation, plus you'll hear a little music as a Patreon reward extra. Just go to our Patreon page, and if you're not already a member, become one of the select patrons of the show. Visit patreon.com/thestuffile program. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
And now, Dad Joke Theater.
What's a robot's favorite snack? Computer chips!
Join us again for another Stuff File program, Dad Joke Theater.
There's still more guests, more news, and an idiot of the day coming your way on the Stuff File program. Stay tuned. The Stuff File program is a listener-supported, fan-funded radio show that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Sign up and find out about our rewards program. Being a patron doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. There's absolutely no obligation. You could join today and end whenever you'd like, but the time we have your support would be so greatly appreciated. We'd also love to hear your thoughts about the show and even your ideas for rewards. Join us for the ride. Join us at patreon.com/thestufffileprogram. program.
We're standing proud together. for Canada. I'm Colin Mockery.
I'm Deb McGrath, and we're making serious changes to the way we shop.
Like this tube of toothpaste, made in Canada.
Yeah, made in Canada, but it's not toothpaste.
Really?
It's cheese spread in a tube.
Oh, I'll take 2 then.
Let's protect Canadian jobs and Canadian business.
Shop as if your country depends on it. Keep your money in Canada for Canada.
You're listening to the Stuff File program. It's the choice of 4 out of 5 dentists. The 5th dentist also listens, but that's just because he follows the crowd. Here's Peter Anthony Holder.
And still to come on the program, we'll talk zombies with author Jason Kristopher, who has written the Dying of the Light series. Plus, Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy, is on to talk about, among other things, the oldest comet ever discovered. We also have a morning shower thought and an idiot of the day coming your way, and lots more in Stuff File News right here, right now. Authorities responded to an incident in Bangor, Maine, where a man had climbed onto a homeowner's roof and refused to come down. According to police, 39-year-old Stephen Nason ascended the roof at around 4 a.m. and told the homeowners he was trying to retrieve drugs from the chimney. The homeowners contacted the Bangor Police and Fire Department, who arrived at the scene. The fire department attempted to use a bucket to reach Nason and bring him down. However, Nason reportedly jumped from the roof into the basket, grabbed an axe attached to it, and then jumped back on the roof, proceeding to chop holes in the residence. Nason eventually surrendered to police at around 11:30 a.m. He was transported to hospital for a physical and a checkup from the neck up and has been charged with aggravated criminal mischief, creating a police standoff, and violating probation. But what I want to know is, did the police find any drugs in the chimney? That's what I'm curious about, and they have less than 5 months to remove said drugs if they find them, before Santa shows up. A cat named Leo in New Zealand has gained the nickname Leonardo da Vinci for his habit of stealing underwear and other items from neighbors. Leo, a 14-month-old Tonkinese, has brought home approximately 150 stolen items over the past 9 months, according to his owner, Helen North. North mentioned that Leo's stolen items range from underwear and socks to expensive jerseys, stuffed toys, and sports gear. Sundays are Leo's preferred days for stealing, as the neighborhood clotheslines are full of accessible items. North uses local social media groups to help neighbors retrieve Leo's stolen goods, including a 5-foot-long stuffed snake that he brought home not once, but twice. Well, here's an idea, Helen. Don't let your cat out, especially on Sundays. Yeah. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our next guest here on this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, on July 23rd in Tallahassee, Florida, police took a famous mouse into custody, Chuck E. Cheese. Mr. Cheese, a.k.a. Jermel Jones, had been fingered as the person who stole a patron's credit card in June and made fraudulent purchases with it. When police arrived at the famous restaurant, Jones, wearing his giant costume mouse head, was handcuffed and escorted out of the front door in front of patrons young and old. Well, I'm guessing the kids were a little traumatized. Officials found the stolen credit card in his possession. Well, that's no mouse. That's a rat.
When you're hungry for fun, it's Chuck E. Cheese.
And let's get to our next guest here on this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? Jason Kristopher is an acclaimed author of world-ending literature. He has several books out in the Dying of the Light series that deals with the world of zombies. Jason joins us on the program via Zoom from Houston, Texas. Hi, Jason.
Hi. It's good to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, too. Thank you for being on the program with us. Now, I'm going to start off by asking a question about whether you're a positive person or a negative person. And the reason why I'm asking that is I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of actors over the years who have played villains. And I have found that the people who have played villains are usually some of the nicest people on the planet. And I'm using that analogy because you write world-ending literature. So I'm wondering, just how positive of a person are you?
Yeah, that's actually something that I get asked a lot. Why so many of my stories talk about the end of the world, and I generally try to be a very positive person. I mean, we all have our days and everything, but I don't think it's so much about the end of the world that I write about. It's the hope for beginnings, for new beginnings, and even my zombie series, it was inspired in some ways by, believe it or not, the Pearl Harbor, Arizona Memorial. Because if you look at that memorial, it's smaller in the middle and then grows toward the end. It gets taller toward the end. And that symbolizes, according to the artist, that symbolizes initial defeat but eventual victory. And I feel like that's kind of what I did with the zombie series. And that's kind of why the gag is that the first book is end, and then you have the interval, and then you have the beginning, right? And so it's not so much about the end of the world as in what we can do to get past that and the indomitable human spirit.
Were you into zombies and zombie culture before you started writing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Believe it or not, I can't watch horror movies. I don't like horror movies, but unless they're zombie movies. And they can get as gory as they want to be in a zombie movie, and it doesn't bother me because for some reason somewhere in my brain that little switch gets flipped, and I can watch it. But yeah, I remember seeing when I was probably too young to see it. I remember seeing. I think the first one I actually saw was Day of the Dead, which is of course the third George Romero movie. And then I went back and now Night of the Living Dead, and Dawn of the Dead, and all of the George Romero movies are some of my favorites. I mean, there's a lot of really, really good zombie movies out there, but yeah, I've been into zombies for a very long time.
I've never understood how zombies can catch anyone.
Well, I think it's like I look at it like ants, sort of. Like an individual ant is not particularly dangerous, but when you get a couple thousand of them, that could really be dangerous. And when you think about it, you're walking around life. You don't walk around and meet hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people every day, but there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people around you. So if all of those people are now monsters and drawn by light and noise or smell or whatever it is for that particular zombie, it's the collection. I don't care how good a shot you are. You can only make so many shots per second or per minute accurately, and that's where I think. One-on-one, you can probably outrun a zombie, but it's not going to be one-on-one unless you're really lucky, generally speaking.
Okay, so you're Dying of the Light series. The most recent book is called The End?
Actually, no. There are 4 books in the series. The first one is called End.
Okay.
The second one is called Interval. And the third one is called Beginning. And the fourth book is a series of short stories, collection of short stories set in that universe. As a matter of fact, I just finished the 6th one, which will be published next year by Wordfire Press in Requiem, an anthology for the undead. It's called Sonata in Z minor. So it's, yeah. So I know it's very confusing, and looking back, I might have gone a different way with the titles, but it's 14 years ago now, so it is what it is.
Well, again, 14 years, so you've been writing these for quite some time. You've always been in the zombie genre. Are there things about other works that you've either read or seen that you don't like about zombies, and you get the opportunity to correct them within your own books?
Well, see, I dislike the idea that I'm correcting anything. I believe that ultimately, I believe that every story has been told. It's just the challenge for an author is not telling a new story, but telling the same story a different way or an objectively better way. And there's so many options for zombies. And the word even zombie can mean just about anything. You could go 28 days later where they're not even dead to mine, which are Dead or The Walking Dead, that kind of thing. So I don't like to think that I'm correcting stuff, but there are things that I've read that don't really make sense to me. That like the author or the filmmaker hasn't really given us enough rules to make it justify their choices in the story. But going back to that positivity thing, I don't really want to call anybody out specifically, but there are things that I did in my book that I wanted it to be as little hand wavy as possible, which is something you find in a lot of sci-fi and horror. Like, this is the way the world is, and we're just going to wave our hands as to why. But there's actual biological reasons for my zombies, and even in the third book, I wanted to do something, but I talked to one of my critique group members, and who happens to be a incredible doctor, and he was like, "Yeah, this is not gonna just no. This would be really, really bad." It was a way to come back from being, zombified or potentially not being zombified at all. And he said, it would just be better to die. And I was like, okay. so yeah, I try to do things with a real basis, but.
Often zombie stories, often horror stories in general, are usually allegories for something that is happening in our time. Are you trying to point to something that is happening in society today that you're getting the message out through your books?
Well, the thing is that the last book in the series, Beginning, was actually published in 2016. So I've been working on other stuff since the zombies. So I don't know that I would point to anything today that the books would be talking about. But I do believe that zombies are allegorical at their core. And so, really the fascination we have with zombies as a culture and just a society is that the zombie allows us to tell stories about ourselves with a sort of faceless bad guy as a storytelling device to hold up the mirror. It's similar in some ways, like Star Trek is a great way to talk about current society without, annoying people because, this is in the future, so maybe things change. And zombies are sort of similar because we can use the zombie as a stand-in for just about anything else. Like I always like to say with the first book, it could have been anything that ended the world. It could have been aliens, it could have been ants, it could have been earthquakes. I chose zombies, but it's not about the zombies. And similar to The Walking Dead, it's a character-driven story. Like The Walking Dead the title doesn't refer to the zombies; it refers to the people. And I think Kirkman et al. Did a great job with that, more or less. In the show, but I have issues, but that's a different story. So I do think the allegory of zombies is really useful in determining, like holding up a mirror to society, that kind of thing.
Well, you have The Dying of the Light series out and available right now, and we've mentioned television shows, movies, streaming shows. Would you like to see The Dying of the Light series in a cinematic version, either on the big or small screen?
I would love that. The way that I write my books is a very sort of visual way. I like to say that the way that I write is so that I can get other people to see the pictures and the movies that I have in my head, right? Because there's so many people who are so talented, who can write something that gets you to see a visual in your mind. My talent comes from being able to see the same thing that I see. And because of that, my writing style is very visual oriented, and I think it would lend itself very well to a movie. Of course, that's what all authors want, right? So, and I have a lot of friends in the industry who are like, well, having a movie produced it sounds great, but it's a lot of work, and it almost never happens, and there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So yes, I would, but I don't know that it'll ever happen, but if it did, I think that would be great.
Well, since you write visually, would it be difficult for you to, in essence, give up control of your stories for someone who was going to make it into a film? Because, again, you have a distinct vision of how they look.
Yeah, that's true. Interestingly, when I wrote the first book, I went to San Diego Comic-Con, the only time I've been there, and I gave away 11,000 copies of the book in digital form. But I also got to meet Max Brooks, and one of the best reviews I ever got of End was that it's the best zombie book since World War Z. And during that conversation, he was less than enthused about that comparison, but he was a really nice guy. And I asked him about World War Z because at the time the movie had come out and it was so phenomenally different from the book. And in the book, when I was reading it, I was thinking they could make a movie like this that was similar to, now this is going to date me a little bit, the movie Reds back in the day. It's just a series of interviews that were filmed. And I said, so how did you get from the book to the movie? And he said, they wrote me a check. And I thought about that. That kind of stuck with me for the last 14 years. And I'm thinking, I occasionally get asked that question. And, I would love to see the story up on the screen. I would love to see it as is because I think it's pretty good. I think 14 years on, I would rewrite it before I let it go up on the screen because there are a lot of things about the story as a first novel that I would change. But then again, I mean, there's a number and they could just write me the check and I would walk away. I would say, use it, do whatever you want with it. That's a truly obscene amount of money, but it's not like money to burn money. It's money I burn to keep my other money warm money, So.
Well, here's to them writing you a check. And don't forget, there's always money on the back end. And the reason why I say that is because they write you a nice check, they make the movie, they release the movie, it becomes successful, and then you repackage the covering of your books based on the movie.
Right.
It's a win-win all the way around.
Yeah, although I just did the covers again. So I don't know what it just, it's the series actually has all brand new covers, and I'm currently going through with I do all the layouts for my books and my publishing company, and so I'm going through and redoing all the interiors as well for the book. So it's going to be fantastic. And now that in a couple months it'll be an excellent time to pick up the book because you'll get the best version of it. I love the idea of it being turned into a movie, but it's just one of those. If it happens, it's great. If it doesn't happen, I've talked to. I'm really good friends with Kevin J. Anderson and Jonathan Mayberry. Not to name up, but we are actually really good friends, and they both have given me a lot of insight into the way that Hollywood works when it comes to authors and stuff. And really, right now, I'm focused on my new books that I'm writing, which have nothing to do with zombies. So I kind of feel like I've told that story, even though I'm continually writing more short stories in that world.
Well, congratulations on the series, the Dying of the Light series, and thank you very much, Jason, for taking the time to be on the program with us.
Yeah, anytime. I had a great time.
Jason Kristopher, author of the zombie series of books called The Dying of the Light series. You can go to our website at thestuffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0832, and you'll find the link to Jason's website, plus links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order his books directly. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
Giving you something to think about. This is Morning Shower Thoughts.
Have you ever noticed that there are two E's in the word be, but they're both silent?
Morning Shower Thoughts from the Stuff File program.
Got something for the mailbag? Drop Peter a line. He'd love to hear from you. Send your email to mailbag@thestufffile.com. And remember, stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's mailbag@thestufffile.com. Or catch up with him on Twitter or Facebook. There's more Stuff File coming your way in just a few moments.
Here's a brief word about our show and my book. If you become a regular Patreon patron of the Stuff File program, I'll give you an e-version of my book, Great Conversations, My Interviews with Two Men on the Moon and a Galaxy of Stars. It's easy to do. Just go to patreon.com and become a patron to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. So, join Patreon and claim your copy of Great Conversations, My Interviews with Two Men on the Moon and a Galaxy of Stars. Sign up at patreon.com/The Stuff File program.
Latitude 47 degrees 14 minutes north. Longitude 84 degrees 39 minutes west. Location Montreal, Canada. This is the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. Now, the Stuff File presents Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy. It's radio that's out of this world.
Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy, is a member of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada and the author of National Geographic's Backyard Guide to the Night Sky, and also National Geographic's Stargazer's Atlas, the Ultimate Guide to the Night Sky. And Andrew, there's something new and something old about our space, and it's both the same thing. Astronomers have discovered the oldest comet.
Yeah, and not only that, we think it's a visitor from beyond, outside of our solar system. So get this. So the name of this is very unromantic. It's 3I Atlas. It's so old, we think it's at least 4.5 billion years old. Probably more like 6 billion or 8 billion, potentially. So this could actually predate the formation of our own planet Earth. It's incredible. And what makes this even more interesting is, of course, the fact that it's an interstellar object. It's from outside of our solar system. It didn't originate here. It's actually traveling very, very quickly. Its trajectory, the path that it's following, is what scientific folks call it's a hyperbolic orbit. So it suggests that it's kind of like a slingshot orbit, it looks like, meaning that it's on a one-way journey through the solar system. Where did it originate from? We don't know. Probably a neighboring solar system, a planetary system, maybe within 10 to 50 light years within our neighborhood, our part of the Milky Way. And it's a very rare item for us to be able to see something like this, Peter. It's just the third confirmed interstellar visitor. The first one was Oumuamua, which was in 2017, and then it was Comet Borisov in 2019. But both of those were much smaller in size. This one measures somewhere, we think, anywhere right between 10 and 20 kilometers across. Unlike the other two, which were more rocky in nature, this Atlas named comet is very volatile. It means that there's a lot of activity on its surface. We think there's a lot of ice, a lot of gas pockets that's creating this kind of fuzzy snowball appearance through telescopes. So it's actively spewing out gas as it's approaching the sun. We think that this comet was basically knocked loose from its home planetary system. Like I said, probably likely a star that's not too far from our solar system. And what's interesting for astronomers, we think of it as a pristine time capsule that really has a lot of ancient cosmic material on it. So it hasn't been, unlike comets that we normally see that are part of our solar system that do repeated passes by our sun, this one is pristine. It hasn't done that because it's probably its first visit to our solar system. So we think its chemistry is all alien. It's very pristine, nothing to do with our solar system. So it makes astronomers really excited. And already they're thinking of different types of ways to explore it through telescopic observations mostly. And we think that it could really help us understand how, when young planetary systems are forming, and basically probe how planets and life might arise elsewhere in the universe.
Well, you just led to me to asking several questions. One, how do we know it's from outside of our solar system? What types of things do we quantify that as being?
That is, yeah. There's really one big thing that's quite telling. It's the trajectory that it's following and the speed that it's going. It's traveling at very high speeds, over 70,000 kilometers per hour, which makes it so fast that there's nothing in the solar system that travels at that speed, one. Two, the trajectory that it's going, you can calculate out its orbit, and it's showing us that it's kind of slingshotting by the sun and back out. It's just going too fast, and it's the angle that it's approaching also shows us that it's coming from just somewhere else outside of the system. No other object kind of goes that way. In fact, it's kind of approaching opposite in direction from where all the other planets, how they're orbiting in the direction, sort of in the opposite direction. So it's all kind of showing that it's alien. All these things are showing that it's of alien origin.
Okay, and my other question is, and I'm going to frame this in a positive sense, because it's a foreign entity from another galaxy,
another solar system,
another
not
solar
a galaxy.
Sorry, thank you. Another solar system. Is it possible that it can leave debris that, for lack of a better term, pollinates our solar system? That's the positive side. The negative side is, in that pollination, is it going to do some sort of damage to our solar system.
I love how you're thinking. That's totally, I could see science fiction novels being written by that. And you know what's interesting is that while it does sound science fiction, what you're talking about is known in astronomy as panspermia. And this is a subject that's been thought about in terms of cross-contamination between planets. And I think you and I have talked about this in the past between Earth and Mars, when Mars was bombarded maybe in the early solar system's life, pieces of Mars traveled and in fact peppered down on neighboring planets. In fact, we find parts of Mars in Antarctica, is very well known. Lots of scientists go there and find big chunks of Mars. In fact, I think one of these chunks of Mars, by the way, just went under an auction and was the most expensive piece of Mars ever. It was a few £100 of chunk of Mars. We know that because of the chemistry, the chemical fingerprint of Mars. We can compare it to what the rovers on Mars have been showing us, what the chemistry of the rocks are. So it's an identical match. So we know the origin. And this has been very interesting, this cross-contamination between worlds. Now, could this happen with Comet Atlas, this alien visitor? Yes, it could. It's actually, because it's cometary in nature, meaning that it's very volatile, like I was mentioning before, it's spewing out gas and dust as it surrounds the sun. And if you think about comets, right, if we all, what's our romantic vision of a comet? It's something in the sky that has this beautiful tail, right, of gas and that's stretching across the sky. That's all basically stuff that's being thrown off of the surface of that object is being deposited, left behind it in space. And that's what this comet is doing. It is leaving behind a lot of material, not just gases, but also bits and pieces of rock and dust. So there's a lot of material being left behind in our solar system. And is it of danger? Most likely not, because what we're realizing through our research the last couple of decades of seeing other planetary systems, the same chemistry that we see in our solar system abounds in the universe. It's everywhere. So it's unlikely that this is going to have some unusual different chemistry, but scientists are eager to look at that, see what the chemistry of this alien comet is going to be. And I think we're going to learn that more of how similar things are than how dissimilar things are in the universe.
Wow. I think we have time for one more topic. I sense a Patreon event coming up a little later on. Very briefly, in the time that we have, let's talk about Canada going into space by themselves.
Right. So Canada has been having a major part in all kinds of space efforts, right? So we think of Canada being involved in things like the Canadarm on the space shuttle, right? Or the Canadarm on the International Space Station. But the fact is that Canada has never launched its own mission independently. So this may change because there's two startup companies, one called Nord Space, the other one Protospace, and these little entities are teaming up to change all that, potentially aiming to reach orbit, Earth orbit, sometime later this year or early 2026, next year. So what are they looking at for their ride? Basically a tiny low-cost launch system that would be powered by kind of like a hybrid motor, they're describing it as. And it's deployable, get this, Peter, from a mobile launch platform. Think of like a flatbed truck. So it's very much similar to, you know, what you see military, you know, in warfare being used by these rocket launchers that are on these flatbed trucks. That kind of system. It's a very cheap, accessible. The whole goal here is accessibility, and they don't want to compete with the giants like SpaceX. They won't be able to. The aim here is to serve sort of like the small clientele of like educational institutions, universities, little small scientific payloads, basically doing access to space on the cheap. Now, if they're successful, Peter, it would really make Canada one of the very few countries out there with independent orbital launch capability. That's really what it's about. So that we're kind of not tied to, you guessed it, to our neighbors in the south, US. We're not tied to them. We can launch small little payloads into low Earth orbit ourselves. It could also open the door, they're saying, for domestic satellite deployment eventually, like things like Earth observation, which is really important to Canada with all our natural resources. Even planetary science could be done potentially on a shoestring budget. That's what it's all about. So the Canadian government really hasn't really committed any kind of support yet yet to this effort, but it's gaining a lot of buzz. And a successful test launch could really prompt policy and funding shifts. If they could prove the concept that it works, it could, be a boon for everyone in Canada. And symbolically, it's about Canada owning its place in space. And it's not just like hitching a ride on something in the U.S.
That sounds very exciting. And we've just about run out of time. So we're going to have to take this excitement another place on Patreon. Are you willing to do that?
Absolutely. I love going to Patreon. There's so much more we can talk about.
Okay, sir.
Clear skies.
Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy. You can go to our website at thestuffile.com to the page for this show, which is show number 0832, and you'll find links to Andrew's site to get your own personal autographed copy of his books. Patreon subscribers, you can hear more of Andrew as a Patreon reward extra, where we'll discuss how ice in space is different than that on Earth, mini-moons might be circling our planet, and the ongoing plight of the Boeing Starliner. Just go to our Patreon page, and if you're not already a member, become one of the select patrons of the show. Visit patreon.com/thestuffile program. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder. And boys and girls, it's that moment you've all been waiting for. It's time now for the Idiot of the Day.
And now it's time for the strange things adults do. The Stuff File presents the Idiot of the Day.
A civilian employee of the Air Force at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska pleaded guilty to conspiracy to transmit classified information related to the national defense. 64-year-old David Slater worked at Offutt with a top-secret security clearance from August of 2021 to April of 2022 after his retirement as a lieutenant colonel. According to the Department of Justice, Slater gave national defense information which could have been used to hurt the U.S. or give an advantage to a foreign nation that was classified to an unauthorized person on a foreign online dating platform sometime between February and April of 2022. Court documents said Slater conspired to transmit classified information via the messaging services on the dating platform to a profile claiming to be a woman in Ukraine. In the messages, the woman consistently asked Slater for information and referred to Slater as her, quote, secret informant love, unquote, and also her secret agent. The DOJ said Slater provided classified information regarding military targets and Russian military capabilities in relation to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Slater faces up to 10 years in prison with 3 years of supervised release and a fine of up to $250,000. He will be sentenced in October. Now, why, oh why, would a 64-year-old, yes, he should know better, former lieutenant colonel share top-secret documents with someone purporting to be a Ukrainian woman on a dating app? One reason, and one reason only. You're an idiot!
Gee, I'm only a kid, but even I know you're an idiot.
And that's it for this edition of the Stuff File program, number 0832. Hope you enjoyed it. The website is thestuffile.com, and once again, Stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H, where you'll find information and links on all of our guests by going to the weekly Stuff File page. Just look for the corresponding program number, and once again, that's 0832. Email me at peter@thestuffile.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Spoutable, Mastodon, and Blue Sky as PA Holder. Check us out on patreon.com, where you can become a patron of the program. Hope to see you back here for our next show on the air, online, or as a download. We're coming to you from everywhere, including kdxradio.com, over the air on World FM in New Zealand, WNRHLP-FM in Newport Richey, Florida, KZZHLP-FM in Eureka, California, CKUW-FM in Winnipeg, CFMU in Hamilton, CKLU in Sudbury, Local 107.3 FM in St. John, CHSR in Fredericton, and also streaming on just about any streaming service your little heart desires. That's it. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, a presentation of Flying Fish Communications. Let me leave you with these words of wisdom. Never ever juggle ice picks while standing on your waterbed.